Sheriff Batwell showed up just before dinner time, and I had Eric on my hip when I answered the door. And they pulled him from my arms. He had his little arms outstretched and crying for me while they were handcuffing me. You know, from his 3-year-old perspective, the last time there were a bunch of cops in the house, it was a really, really bad day. And they were back. I never seriously thought that they would convict me. I thought, oh, in fact, I had planned my life. Oh, you know, what am I going to do after this? Where am I going to live? And a very small part of me thought, well, you know, what if? But the bulk of it, I would say, most of my thinking, most of my feeling was that this can't possibly happen. What could there be out there that would point to this? When they announced the time, the aggravated life, I collapsed, literally. My butt hit the chair real hard. If the chair hadn't been there, I would probably just fallen on the floor. I was that surprised. The weight of it, the shock. I didn't think, from my chair, I didn't see where he had made a case. Everything had been refuted. Everything had been challenged. And the things that hadn't been challenged were just so preposterous that it was almost just like, and? You know, that's it? They went into a stacked deck. In hindsight, I don't see how they could have won. Prison is prison. It's no different for me, or was no different for me than anybody else who goes in there. You can snivel that you don't deserve to be there, but the things that I had to go through were identical to the guy right next to me who might have got busted, you know, moving several keys of coke or something. He's got to be there too. I mean, you go through the same stuff, you deal with the same people. It has rougher moments. Mostly prison is boring and loud and disrespectful and designed to eat up time. You don't get to go where you want to go. You can't eat what you want to eat. It's not supposed to be a nice place, and the cliche that's made famous, which is appropriate, is that you go there as punishment. You're not supposed to go there for punishment. If you think it's going to make anybody better, good luck with that. My first day inside, the way they used to have it set up, where you picked up your boots. That's after you're stripped and you're given a pair of state boxers, but you pick up your boots next. And I remember the guy in front of me was standing there getting his boots, telling the size and all that stuff. And I counted 13 stab wounds on his back. And it was a very sobering moment that this is a very serious place. These folks aren't playing around. I benefited in a way because when I went to prison, I was 32 years old. So I was a grown man. I wasn't one of these 19, 20, 22-year-old, I call them kids. They're legally adults, but you have a different world view when you're 22 than when you're 32. And an old con knew me because of all the media attention. And that's about all he knew about me, but he just said, you'll do okay. Just in the beginning, keep your mouth shut and your eyes open. And that was really good advice. I started going to the gym, just as I'd done in the world. A good way to fill time, good way to stay in shape, all that kind of stuff. And I started seeing a guy in there. Just because of our different schedules, however, we used to kind of show up at the gym at the same time, and within a couple months we were working out together. Our schedules just meshed. And he had a life sentence. And he had just finished his 20 calendar when I showed up, and I was about to start my 20 calendar. And he didn't lecture me, but every now and then he'd give me a little pearl of wisdom. And one weekend, a guy hanged himself in a cell. And my friend told me that he'd seen a bit of that, in his time down there. And he said, if you don't have anything to hang on to, doesn't matter what it is, you'll end up hanging yourself. And that's something that you hang on to. It can be anything. I believe the examples he used were an old car you want to restore that's sitting in your dad's barn or something, or maybe a marriage you want to fix. And he said that, like with me, pointing at me, or with you, he said, it's your son. And he was the most important thing in my world. 12, 13-ish, he's starting to get into puberty, he's starting to be a little bit of a young guy, and he wrote me a letter and said that he didn't want to come down to the penitentiary anymore to see me. So I wrote him a letter back, and I said, I'll honor your wishes, but you come down here and you look me in the eye and you tell me that, and we'll go from there. So on the next ordered visit, he stared at the floor and told me this thing. And I told him he could come back and see me anytime he wanted, but I told my sister-in-law to take care of my son. And we had like a 90-second visit because I walked away. Around 2001, 2002, I got notice that the most important thing in my life was being taken away from me, and that he was having his name illegally changed, and he was being adopted by my sister-in-law and her husband. Good people, raised him, nothing wrong with them, but you could say it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Losing Chris didn't break me. Being convicted and sentenced didn't break me. And spending 14 or 15 years down there didn't break me. But when I lost my son, that broke me. Didn't see any reason for anything, and I literally cried out to God. I got nothing. I'm bankrupt. Show me something. You there? I got nothing. A week, 10 days later, I don't know when it was. I had a really nothing day, just like all the hundreds and hundreds before it. Nothing happened at work fancy. Food wasn't out that unusual. Time in the gym was another day, no big deal. Work was the same old. So I decided to call it a day, turn off the little lamp next to my bunk, put on the headphones and go up and down the dial on the radio once or twice and go to sleep. And without any preamble, warning, no flags at all, I was suddenly bathed in this blinding, golden, indescribable light. It's all I could see. And I heard this roaring in my ears, blocked out everything else that I now have heard described as a mighty wind, or many rushing waters, or whatever you want to call it. And I felt like I was weightless. I was like just floating above the bunk, and I was experiencing bliss. Just, I was very, very at peace. I was excited and thrilled. I was ecstatic. I was infinitely calm. I know this sounds contradictory, but it was just the most fantastic, wonderful sensation I've ever had. I knew exactly what it was. I didn't have to ask. It was just as plain as the sun in the sky. I knew it was the presence of God. Things began to happen, and I became a little more mature and a little more aware and a lot more grounded. And I didn't like prison, but I was used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had moments of happiness. John Rayleigh, very few people can look to somebody and say, excuse me, that you owe your life to them. And I can say that about John. I can point to him and say, there's the guy. That's the guy who got me out. He said, even if all this DNA stuff collapses, I'm never going to stop. I'm not going to give up. There's something always to be done. He had literally thrown his life into this. And he didn't know me from the man in the moon. He had never, all he did was read the file that Nina had pushed his way. And when somebody does something like that for you, you're never the same.